Welcome to Multifamily Grit, where we bring in the experts to share the pros and cons and celebrations and struggles of one of the most important industries in the U.S., multifamily property management. Today, I am back with William for another one of our monthly recaps. And before we get started, we are sponsored today by the only core property management operating system built with an emphasis for affordable owners and operators. Fortress revolutionizes affordable management by reducing applicant processing time to help you save money, generate cash, and drive your team to success. Don't forget, if you like what you hear today, please like, subscribe, and share with someone you think would enjoy this episode. So, William, thank you so much for being here with me today again.
Hi.
Hi.
um, Third time's the charm.
I know.
Yeah, I guess this is the third recap episode.
Yeah, these recap episodes have really started to become my favorites.
Yeah.
And a huge part of that is because I just enjoy spending the time with you. And another part, I guess I have 3 reasons why they're my favorites. So first, you and I get to spend time together, which is just fun. Second, I don't have to dress up. So
Meanwhile, I am.
I get to wear hoodies and tennis shoes because I'm like, it's just you and I, so I don't have to impress anybody.
Yeah.
But third, it is so, I mentioned this in a LinkedIn post, but I really do mean it. It's so easy to not to pay attention. It's so easy to not recap things in life. Like you just go around and you just have all these experiences and you don't really think back on them. And like you took some pictures and you go back, but you don't like relive it. And when we do these recaps, I'm forced to relive those episodes, right? Like I sit down and I listen to them so that I can plan for what I want to highlight out of those episodes when you and I sit here and do these recaps together. And it's so interesting because like literally reliving it, going through it start to finish afterward is so enlightening. It really is.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Normally I'm here with you when you're recording them, but for these that we're going to be talking about today, I wasn't.
Yeah.
And so I'm listening to them.
I'm growing up.
Before,
I'm doing
I'm
a podcast
setting you out on your own, trusting the process.
Which you don't have to babysit me.
I'm not so good at trusting the process.
I know.
I'm a little bit more controlling than that.
Oh, I know.
But it's interesting because for all the other ones, I was here while you were recording them.
Yeah.
These I weren't, and weren't. I don't know language today. But so I'm listening to them before we release them, but then to like prep for this, like going back and listening to them again and really paying attention to what was being said and the little nuggets that all these great people have to say. It's so I agree with you. I think it's really just diving into it.
Yeah, it has been. It's like you said, for me, it's more like literally reliving it is just so enlightening. So it's been great.
Yeah.
I'm excited to talk about the ones today.
I know. I am too. We had some great people join you.
Yeah. Very smart people. Yeah.
Yes. There were some things we were actually talking about this before we came in today. And one of the gentlemen we're going to talk about first, Hunter, and some of the things he was saying, because I'm not involved in like the development side of things and I'm not involved in some aspects of property management. And so even for me, I was like, oh, this is quite interesting. I don't know if I would have considered some of these things that they were talking about. So
yeah, that's the way I felt listening back. I was like, wow, this is really cerebral. It's a little more than we normally get into. But it was also, I felt like I learned so much through those conversations, and specifically in some of the data points and even the politics, the conversations that we had were just really enlightening. So
yeah, politics. Ooh.
Yeah,
when we were planning for those episodes, I was like, oh gosh, where are we going with this?
I know.
It's all fair and valid, but sometimes I get a little nervous.
Yes, same. I know. I know you get more nervous than I do because I told you I was like, "Ooh, Hunter's ready to talk politics," and you're like, "I don't know," and I was like, "It's not me. I'm not going to be joining in on it." Let's not polarize anyone, but
it's fair and it's valid. I mean, it's things that are going on, and every decision has some sort of an impact, and so it's important to talk about it.
Yeah. So. Agreed. And it is funny just to talk about being open to having those hard conversations. It was probably my favorite part. We can start with Hunter, but probably my favorite part of my conversation with Hunter was just talking about him being a contrarian in general, right? So just generally speaking, he's very open to going against the grain and taking it a step further to even like really push through that. So what I mean by that, he talked a lot about how when the economy started to turn and everyone started to struggle and equity started pulling back capital and interest rates were rising and everything felt really hard and messy, he and his team were like, you know what, we actually need to double down in this. And I think it made it easier for them because he was comfortable in that contrarian position because he was so confident in what he was doing. Like he knew that he knows how to handle affordable housing. Like he knows how to get the tax credits. He knows how to deal with the tax credits. Like he just knows what he's doing. And so he felt really comfortable leaning into going against the grain when everyone else was starting to pull back, and he leaned in, and his whole team did, and it ended up creating massive amounts of success for them. At the end of the day, it was definitely the right thing to do. But I think it's just so interesting to look at it from that perspective, where it's like when you know that you're good at something and you're really confident in yourself, it doesn't matter what everybody else is doing. Like it's okay to be the contrarian, it's okay to go against the grain, and it's okay to like lean into what you know and what you're really good at and create in those moments like that. You can create a massive amount of success.
Yeah. Well, he knows a lot, definitely more than I know. I realized how little I did know while listening back to his episode. Just smart.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, I always say there's no smartest person in any room because I think I really do believe that the people who think that either have massive egos or very small egos. If they think that anyone in the room is the smartest person, we all have different perspectives and experiences and education and intelligence to bring to the room. But I swear to you, if there is a smartest person in the room, it is Hunter. If Hunter's in the room, he's absolutely brilliant. And he's also extremely humble. But he's taught me everything I know about affordable housing. Everything.
Well, and I think the smartest person in the room also goes back to what's the topic of conversation.
Yeah.
Now, if we're talking affordable housing, that's Hunter. If we're talking like Real Housewives, that's me. I'll go toe-to-toe with anybody any day.
What is that? What are you talking about?
See?
Yeah, I have no idea.
I am now the smartest person in the room. See how quick it changes? But no, I think it's and actually to take a step back, because we kind of just dove right in, but we're talking about Hunter Nelson, partner in Elmington. I just want to make sure we're
please
bring
me back on track. Yes,
because we kind of dove right in, but I think I think it's fine. But just so those listening know that.
Yeah.
So if they want to go back and listen to that episode if they haven't heard it, Hunter Nelson.
Yeah.
Talking all things affordable housing, election impacts.
Yeah, solar energy.
Solar energy.
Mm-hmm. Which I'm not even going to comment on that because I'm not there with him. But I do think if Hunter says that leveraging solar energy in your affordable developments is a really smart way to continue to add value to the units and get more out of every unit, by all means, you should be doing it. But other than that, I'm not going to dig into it. That's outside of my knowledge base for sure.
I mean, same. I don't know much about solar energy. I know it's important, but I'm also curious, like how, because costs and spending on affordable housing can be tight.
Yeah.
Isn't like the upfront cost of like solar probably quite expensive? But
I have no idea. It's just really not my. I know the way that Hunter described it was really about the ability to add credits and energy credits on top of like the tax credits. But honestly, he was also talking about how the ability to generate enough power to essentially eliminate the costs of energy on site is also incredibly valuable. But I am just really not the person to talk about this, to be honest with you.
What, you don't want to have a whole podcast just talking about
No,
solar energy?
no.
And
You go listen to Hunter's episode. It was brilliant. It was brilliant. But I was really interested in his conversation around the election and how that's going to impact affordable housing. In fact, I'll even start by saying that the way that he even started the conversation by talking about a white paper that he has on the history of affordable housing policy. I have not gotten that from him yet, but I'm going to get it, and I will post it when we post this episode so that everyone has a chance to look at that, because I imagine it's quite an interesting read, honestly. Like I said, everything I know about affordable housing I learned from Hunter, and it's a very interesting it's really a very interesting concept, and the way that we in the U.S. handle all the different types of affordable housing. I mean, you and I know from trying to implement it in Fortress, right?
Yeah.
And just managing through all the regulations and making sure that we are reporting on everything correctly, whether that's at a state level or a federal level, or the demographics data that the affordable housing developers need in order to acquire more equity for more deals. Like, just trying to understand that and navigate that landscape is incredibly difficult. So,
yes.
yeah. I mean, well, shoot, we're going through RD right now, and it's like, that's a whole new bucket to understand, you know? So I will say, though, that Hunter's actual conversation around the election was fantastic, because he was very open about discussing how the overall impact of a Republican president versus a Democratic president, and what that means for affordable housing. And one thing that I loved that he called out so specifically is that while we all think that providing more affordable housing is more of a Democrat focus than it is a Republican, I don't think that that's necessarily true, although he did highlight the pros and cons. So something that really stood out to me was the fact that that most affordable housing developers especially LIHTC anyway, lie awake at night hoping for corporate tax rates to increase, because that's what pushes the groups that he works with to contribute the equity to purchase the tax credits, because they have large tax liabilities. And so if a Republican government comes in and lowers the corporate tax rates, then we do kind of, that would be a really interesting situation to see how that impacts LIHTC development. So
Yeah, it's funny it's not funny you mention it, but I actually had that in my notes to talk about as well, because I was just curious, not really being involved in any sort of capacity like that. I'm just not exposed to it, but I did make a note of him saying that corporate tax rates dropping would make an impact on him and not positively.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't fully understand like why. It's when you hear it, it sounds like, oh great, you're dropping the tax rates. Like, that sounds positive for corporations, but I guess in this case maybe it's not.
Yeah, not specifically to the way that affordable housing is funded through the LIHTC program. And LIHTC is, low income housing tax credit, is one of the largest programs for developing affordable units. Now, these aren't subsidized units, right? Like HUD Section 8 is the more common, like, subsidized unit. LIHTC is actually, instead of being subsidized directly to the property through payments of rent or to the resident for assistance with rent, the subsidy comes at the development level, where the developer is incentivized and provided with subsidies in order to develop the asset, and then they have to keep rents there's a rent cap involved in renting those units, number one. And then number two, there's a requirement that the individuals who rent those units make less than a certain amount of the area median income. So it's less about like subsidizing on the back end, and it's more about incentivizing on the front end to actually get the development out of the ground in the beginning. And how they incentivize on the front end to get the development out of the ground is by giving the developer tax credits and then the developer sells those tax credits to corporations who utilize those instead of paying their tax liability. If their tax liability decreases, then they have less of a need. There's less of a demand for Hunter's tax credits or for the LIHTC tax credits. So that's why he lies awake at night praying that that corporate tax rates increase, not decrease. So
interesting.
Yeah.
I guess I never thought about it that way or understood it in that way. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting take on the economy for sure. So
yeah.
All right. Yeah. But honestly, he talked about that, but then he also talked about the fact that the that's a Republican issue, which is they generally look to lower corporate taxes. There's an issue on the Democratic side of the House, which is they generally talk about pretty consistently creating rent caps across the board. In fact, this actually segues into a different conversation, but some might call those concepts like asinine to put rent caps in place across the U.S., where they're saying the proposal would be, that you can only increase rent on your market rent units by 5% a year. And I just disagree with that sort of policy inherently. I just think that you're putting too many, anytime that you intentionally curb the natural supply and demand curve, that you're creating unnatural impact that you don't know what's going to happen from that. And I think in many instances you start putting rent caps in and now development slows, which means now we have a supply problem, right? Which then creates a demand problem. But if you can't grow your rents naturally within the market space, then people are going to be less interested in getting into the market. So I just think there's so much. But I will say, though, kind of my takeaway from all that, from talking to Hunter about, in Hunter's purple stance, he said, he's like, I'm fine to talk about politics. I'm purple. It doesn't matter. And he just kind of laid the facts out. But what I really walked away with is that, like, we shouldn't go to extremes, right? Yeah. Like, extremes in regulation tend to not be good policy. And we really need to just allow the market to drive the supply and demand curves. And then we do need to do what we can to promote or to solve what is the root problem. Like, the problem is there's not enough housing. So we need to do what we can from a regulatory perspective to help incentivize and develop housing, and then let the market manage the price of that housing and how the housing is allocated.
Yeah, it's tricky. There's no right answer here. I don't think capping rents is not the answer, although in some ways I'm like, do it. But I've also seen in markets and working with clients in other states, especially some of the states on the West Coast, and seeing how they're pretty restrictive, or it's a lot on landlords on what they can do and what they can't do, and when you can evict and rates. And I've seen what an impact that makes on a landlord, or on a business, on an organization, to really operate, because there's so many controls on them. Which is not, every state has controls, but I feel like on the West Coast, some of those states, it's pretty tough.
Yeah. I mean, when you can't evict someone who hasn't paid rent in 5 months, and you're forced to put them on, payment plans. And let's be very clear, a lot of these multifamily assets are potentially over leveraged, and they're paying way too much in interest at this point, and they're struggling to meet general property maintenance needs from a cash flow perspective, and then to not allow them to evict someone who hasn't been paying rent for 5 months, so you can't get someone in there who can pay. I mean, it's tough. Yeah. It's really tough. And then, there's also the broken window syndrome. Like, residents see other residents doing this and not being evicted, so then they realize they can do it too. And it does become a really vicious circle. So
it's all in the nature of trying to protect the tenants, which is great and smart, and tenants should be protected. But but too much control is too much control.
Mm-hmm.
And then you limit, you're really hurting organizations, which some people would argue, oh, well,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Well, I talk about this a lot, especially with my kids. Like, there's a huge difference between intent and impact.
Yeah.
And I think the intention here is really good.
Yeah.
But they don't, a lot of times, legislation doesn't understand the true impact, right? So the intention's good.
Yeah.
You know, but
I agree.
the impact is rough. So
It's a good way to put it.
yeah. Yeah. I would be remiss if I didn't mention Hunter's really funny final story too.
Yeah.
So I will just say it's worth a listen. I'm not going to repeat it, but it's worth a listen.
Go check it out.
Yeah. I will. It might make sense to talk about David next. Since it's kind of, very similar in that cerebral, like very market heavy conversation that we had.
Yeah, and taking notes for both, it was like, oh, okay, there's some similarities here.
Yeah.
And just for our listeners, David Strange came on from Walker and Dunlop. He is the senior managing director for Walker and Dunlop. Great guy.
Yep.
Love being able to interact with him.
Yeah.
I haven't spent as much time or interacted with him as much as you have, but
Yeah.
But I have enjoyed the conversations I have had with him.
Yeah, he's such a great guy. But also, Walker and Dunlop is just a really great company. I think that adage of like the energy and the culture of the company starts at the top. Willie Walker is just a really fantastic person who is really motivated to create success for his team and his clients, and that it just sets the right tone. They're just a great group, super smart people, really dedicated to creating success in real estate and multifamily commercial. So yeah.
It's interesting because we're kind of talking about with Hunter talking about rent caps and those sorts of things, but then it was interesting to hear David talk about how the price of a home, the average price of a home like 56 years ago, versus today, which like today is like 7 times the average median household income, but then it was a 2-to-1 ratio.
Yeah.
So it's like there is a problem. Prices continue to go up, but what people can afford hasn't necessarily in a lot of cases. So it's one of those. I think that's the solution people are trying to solve. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think in one case I was talking with David, it's more talking about like the purchasing of a home, but I think the same can be said with rent. I mean, rent continues to go up. People's income don't necessarily, it pushes people into different, I don't know. Yeah. But I don't know what the solution is.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody does.
No, I don't know either. I will, funny side note, this is personal, but my husband celebrated his 42nd birthday this weekend, and his mom sent him this like gigantic birthday card that had like all the stuff from his year of birth. You know how they do those things now, where it's like, what was the
I love those. I got one of those one year.
Yeah.
Like the price, what was the price of milk?
Yes.
That kind of thing?
Yes, exactly. Where it's like that. Popular child names and like, all that stuff. So 1982, his birth year, and the average household income was annual salary, I think, was around like $25,000. And the average cost of a home was like $60,000. And so it was like, that really rings true to that time period. But like 2 times that your income versus 7 times your income. However, what I thought was really interesting was that the percentage of Americans owning their homes, the percentage of ownership hasn't changed. So David pointed that out too, and said that, 50 years ago, 65% of Americans of home owning age own their homes, and the same holds true today. So do you feel like there's a push to create more ownership? Do you think that's a thing? Like, is that something we need to be discussing?
I don't know. I think it depends on the generation that you're asking. Because I know like my generation, like the generation, like the elder millennials, I think that in some cases, if you ask a lot of them, I think they would say that it's just not in the possibilities for them. Like the dream of home ownership is there, but it's is it possible? Can I make this happen?
Mm-hmm.
House prices are high, interest rates are high,
Mm-hmm.
rent's high,
Yeah.
but feeling like you can't get yourself into a situation where you can own a home,
Mm-hmm.
especially as like somebody who's single.
Yeah.
Maybe if you're have a dual income or anything like that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But also, like, as someone who I've owned a home,
Yeah.
I also love renting.
I know. I was just about to ask you, like, can we get personal for a second?
Yeah.
Like, do you really want to own a home again?
Maybe.
It's a pain in the ass.
I mean, maybe someday, but I would want to be able. Well, if I want a home again, I need to be able to hire like landscapers and housekeeping.
Yeah.
I don't want to actually do any of the actual like home ownership stuff. So I don't mind renting. Something breaks, I just call somebody.
Yeah.
My AC went out this weekend.
Yeah.
They didn't fix it this weekend.
Yeah. That's just so annoying. Should we call them out?
No.
Do you want to talk about your management company?
No, they're
Right here?
fantastic. No, I love it there.
Okay, but this is like the 6th time your AC's been broken. Since.
I know it does keep breaking.
Yeah.
But working in this business, part of me is like, you know what? I know what's probably going on at this. Like, there's probably a million other problems going on. So being a little warm, it's not my favorite. I get a little grouchy, but
I need you not grouchy.
but I don't know if I want to buy. I don't want to buy right now. I'm not going to buy with the interest rates the way that they are right now.
Obviously.
That's
Yeah.
insane. But yeah, I sold my home a year and a half ago, and
Yeah.
honestly, it worked out in my favor because we bought our home 2 years prior. I don't know. We owned the home for like a little over 2 years, but in that amount of time, it like doubled in value.
Yeah.
We bought in a brand new subdivision. They were still building. We were right next to a high school. And we bought it because we knew that every single home that went up and sold was increasing the value of our house.
Yeah.
And then in 2 years, we could sell that house and
Yeah.
have quite a bit of money
Yeah.
in our pocket.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I look at it and I just see so many. I understand why so many people these days don't want to actually own a home. I really do. Like, I completely understand why that 65% has held pretty consistently. I mean, you would have thought that it would have dropped if, we went from 2 times to 7 times and, those things. But I understand it, really.
yeah,
I get it. So
it's not for everybody.
Mm-mm.
Everybody thinks that everybody wants to buy a house. Not everybody wants to buy a house.
Yeah, I agree.
Some people are completely content.
Yeah, I agree.
Some breaks there. Come fix it.
Yeah,
I don't have to fix
maybe.
it. Maybe. They'll fix it at some point when they feel like it.
Oh man. I did really like his conversation around how we could potentially make housing a little bit more affordable through the use of tech and AI. I thought that was really interesting. And I know that there are a lot of those tools out there. In fact, I was doing research for a different panel I'm moderating next week, actually, at OpTech. But I was doing some research for that and came across the fact that when it comes to technology that's being built and created for affordable housing, that the vast majority of that technology is actually focused on the development side. So whether that's identifying land or assessing land or creating plans or whatever that is, that it's most of the tech that's being developed with the purpose of serving for affordable housing is really on the development side, which I think is really interesting. And that's really what David called out too. So
Why do you think that is?
I think it's just easier. I think there's and I talked about this a little bit with David as well. How cumbersome it is to get into affordable housing.
Yes.
And to long-term manage the regulations and requirements, especially for a program like LIHTC that is a federal program administered by the states. So every state has different requirements, different forms, different data submissions, different data housing platforms. It is so cumbersome for operators to actually deal with that. And it's very hard to find a solution to that problem because at the end of the day, you have to use one of the core operating systems to manage your rent roll, to manage the actual asset and the units and the residents who live in those assets. And you have to manage that in this system. And then if you're going to try to do anything from a regulatory perspective, you'd have to do it outside of that system, and then but that data's got to get in anyway. It's just a mess, honestly.
Yeah. When it's hard to centralize or standardize when every single state is doing something different.
Yep.
So it's like, oh, I got to accommodate for this, and I got to accommodate for that.
Yeah. Well, and even if you're talking about federal programs that are managed federally, so like HUD, Section 8, RD, even those go through these periods of change in the regulation that are miserable. So like HOTMA is such a great example. I mean, HOTMA was supposed to go live back in January for everyone, right? HUD came out and was like, HUD's like, we can't handle this. Like, we're going to push this out 6 months, and then another 6 months, and then another 6 months. So I mean, there was a year and a half past the original guidance that was released for HOTMA to go live. Now, some states were like, that's it. We're doing it. Like Texas was like on it. Like HOTMA's in effect. It's effective in January 1. We're done. And we have, groups like HUD Section 8 and RD that have pushed it out to June of next year. July of next year.
But just think of how many people it impacts too, though.
Yeah.
Not only these organizations, the people who work for like HUD and RD, but tenants who are being affected by these HOTMA changes.
Yep.
Core operating systems like us.
Yeah.
Who have to implement changes.
Yep. Yeah.
So everybody's just kind of like, okay.
I know. Yeah. Well, and it's so tough because until we received this last bit of guidance from RD that they were holding off, that they were following HUD's footsteps and holding off to require using the HOTMA regulation changes until July of next year. We thought it was going into effect in January. Well, you're starting to do all of your recerts for RD now for those households that have their certs expire, their certs renew on 1/1. Yeah. And we're like, hold on, RD hasn't released the paperwork. Like we don't have the new forms that they want us to use so how can we can't even though it needs to be implemented and people need to be using these forms for 1/1 research, we don't have the data to do it.
Do those people just get grandfathered in?
No.
So, but how does that work? So they just have to go back and redo certifications for those people?
Well, thankfully, RD kicked it again, right? So we wouldn't have to deal with it. But we were stressed about it. So we were like, well, either you can't start your research or you're going to have to redo them. So because there are new calculations involved too, and you need to do it on the new forms. And anyway, it's a mess. But it does, like, that hinders people from entering the innovation from a technology perspective when you're dealing with like extremely cumbersome government regulations that vary so widely across states. You can't integrate into like the core ERPs that are being used to manage the bulk of that data. It's just it's very hindering. So it's a struggle right now.
Yeah. When it just stops creativity as well, and any sort of I mean, some of the best things out there, just somebody thought, oh, this stinks, let's find another way, let's build something, but it kind of puts a halt to a lot of that.
Yeah, it absolutely does. It really does. And I just agree with David at the end of the day that affordability is really going to come from having enough supply and having the right supply. So we need more supply in the market. And one thing that I really loved is him talking about the fact that the average size of a home today is like twice what it was 50 years ago, and that the sizes of our households are decreasing. So we have less people in the homes, and we need to have them twice as big, which is creating an issue.
I mean, I kind of agree with.
Why?
See, this is probably the only reason I want to buy a home again.
Why?
I don't know. I live by myself. I have no pets and no kids, but I want a 5,000 square foot home. Don't ask me why. I don't know.
I applaud you for owning it.
Yeah.
But it's so, oh, yeah. I get it. Would you put more stuff in it? Or you just want space, empty space?
I just like the space.
Yeah.
I really like a home that looks like absolutely nobody lives there.
Yeah.
Like a stage, like model home.
Yeah.
Like that no one sat on a piece of furniture. or eaten at the dining room table ever.
I feel like you'd be very uncomfortable in my home.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of white.
Yeah.
Very little color. Like, have you ever seen like Kim Kardashian's home?
No.
Well, look up a picture.
I'll get right on that.
That's Everything's beige.
You crack me up. Oh my goodness.
I like beige.
We're going through this like exercise in our home where we're trying to get rid of stuff. Like seriously get rid of stuff.
But yeah,
There's
we
just
talked
too
about this
much
too.
stuff.
I don't like stuff.
Yeah.
I don't want stuff.
Mm.
I just like the space.
No.
But no, I mean, I guess it's true. Homes are bigger.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at, especially the area that I was living in Lebanon, Tennessee, really established neighborhoods, being around for quite a while. Like, homes are mostly ranch style, single story homes, decently sized, not overly large. But the land, you get more land.
Yeah.
Whereas like the homes they're building out there now, very large homes, multi-story homes on very small plots of land with little to no yard. So you're right. I mean, that's what's getting prioritized right now. You can see it just by what's getting built.
That's such an interesting conversation because it's not a part of the conversation David and I had, which is, right, like, today land is expensive, but the priority of the homeowner has changed. So before they wanted really big yards, and now they just want really big homes.
Because we're all sitting inside watching Real Housewives.
Let's not put us all into the same bucket on that one. Some of us are not inside watching Housewives.
Who needs a yard when you have Bravo?
Oh, that hurts me.
Personally. Just personally.
That's so funny.
I know, yeah, sorry, I diverted a little bit, but it's true.
No, I think that's a really, well, no, that part's not true. But I think it is a really good point, though, that we should have very different priorities now. So, so funny. I'm trying so hard to, like, get outside more and get out of my desk. But it's tough. It's tough to leave my home office, honestly. So, I get it.
I agree.
Yeah, I know you do. We're busy. Okay, so let's talk about Meg.
Meg.
Yes. One of my favorite conversations so far. She is just a giant in the industry. Like, she just clearly has, like, been so successful. It's awesome.
Yeah. Meg Tibbs, Vice President of Operations at Dominium.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed listening to y'all's conversation and re-listening to it while prepping. I really liked it only because I could find myself in some ways, like, in what she was saying and, like, her background.
Yeah.
And getting started in, like, concierge, and then just, like, being willing to just, like, learn and take on more.
Yeah.
Which I feel like is kind of my path in a lot of ways, like starting in hotels and then transitioning to property management. But I was always willing to just be like, I'll try it, or show me what to do, I'll take it on.
Yeah.
But she's right. First of all, that's how you learn, but that's also how you provide value.
Yeah.
And that's how you get seen.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyways, I enjoyed that entire conversation.
Yeah, I love that. I think you said it really well, but she really harped on this, which was, like, don't be afraid to ask for more.
Yes.
But opportunities are not just going to fall in your lap. Like, you have to be present. You have to, like, raise your hand. You have to bring the energy that makes people want to give you those next opportunities and provide you with those, like, giving you the opportunity to learn something new or do something new. So, which I love, the value of not staying in your lane.
Yes. I just agree with it so much. I think in work, especially in work, I mean, there's so many, I don't know, just try something new.
Yeah.
If somebody needs help with something, be like, well, I mean, if you think you can do it, why not?
Yeah. Yeah, I know. That's probably my favorite thing about our team right now at Fortress, especially the executive team, is that we are all really aligned on what it is that we're working on right now. So it's like, you could ask anyone at Fortress, what is Fortress's number one priority right now? And what's the number two priority right now? And everyone can tell you what those two things are. And we are rallied around getting those things done, which provides opportunities for everyone in every division of Fortress to contribute in a different way, because they're not thinking, oh, like, my job is X, which it normally is. Instead, my job is the number one priority. whatever that is, I'm here to help with that and rally with that and support that. And so it's been really unique. We've had a few people step up in some fun ways and I've personally gotten to spend time with people that I don't normally. And it's because they're realizing that like their lane is fortress, not whatever their specific job or role is every day. The lane is fortress. Like it's fortress of success. How do we create success at fortress? And what does that look like? So
yeah. Love it.
Yeah. And I really like what Dominium is doing right now and a lot about Meg's mission there with the teams to create these sort of like training opportunities, really this heavy focus on training. And even though property management never stops and it feels like you're always behind and the work orders never stop, the long-term value proven through data of investing in your team and providing them with that training and support up front, I just think is really cool. I really love what they're doing there. I'm really impressed with kind of their ability to prioritize that.
Sorry.
Do you need a water break?
No, okay.
I'm serious.
Sorry.
Do you need water?
Got that out. Actually, do you have a water? Any water? Even if it's just a glass.
I know, you're done.
Now I got a tickle.
We've only got like 10 minutes left.
I know, but now I got a tickle. I can't.
It's okay.
Get rid of it.
We'll just pause this.
That's the worst.
I'm sorry. I know.
I know. It's just like when it starts and you can't.
know. I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm so sorry.
I shouldn't wear this vest either. Sitting over here.
You look fantastic. We've got 10 minutes. 5.
Yeah.
10. We're almost done.
Oh, I know. I was like, I just
You
hold
got
the
this.
hold the cough, and that's the worst
I
thing.
know.
I
I know.
leave it to me to always be coughing in these. Thank you so much. You're the best.
You're
Sorry.
so much drama.
I know.
Such a diva. Would you like him to make you a martini while he's out?
Actually, that'd be lovely.
We go back to snooze and get you a pumpkin martini. Should we?
We should start doing these drunk. Have you?
I think it'd be fun.
I know. What are those drunk history?
Or like as the podcast keeps going, like you just get drunker and drunker.
Yes.
You take a shot for like every time.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I can't.
Every time Kerri says I can't, we got to take a shot.
Do I say that a lot?
I don't know. We'll find out.
Yes, we will.
Okay.
I don't. Oh.
Okay.
I don't drink it. I can't do that.
Okay. Reset. Hopefully y'all can just cut all of this out. Thank you. Okay. I don't know where you were at. You're gonna have to. Oh, what Dominium was doing with training opportunities.
Yeah.
Yes. Which I actually made a note of because just in a lot of the things that she was saying and how the operations team is structured for a lot of these training opportunities and just kind of different, almost like, I guess, sub-departments or just, well, not really sub-department, but just like focuses on very specific things to support their on-site teams, which I think is so important and so valuable. And I've seen other companies do not this specifically, but just similar things that I think really makes their teams feel supported and makes them want to stay around.
Yeah.
Which I think is wonderful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they proved it. They proved it in the data. So, like they were hiring all these maintenance technicians and they tried out multiple different programs, cash, like straight cash, gifts, and this support structure. And the support structure proved to be the best in retaining the team members versus all the others. And so like they proved it out in the data, and now they're doing the same thing in other divisions where they're creating like specialized pods of specialized focus to assist the on-site teams to provide that support and help them be more successful, which is leading to greater longer-term retention, which is what we're all looking for in this industry right now. So I think it's just so smart.
Yeah, it's genius.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, I'm just trying to think back of, I think like working on site, like knowing that you had support systems there and people who could help, were ensuring that you were not only just trained up, but were there when you needed help in any capacity. Means a lot.
Yeah. Well, and taking it back to affordable, and you and I talking about the difficulties of managing an affordable and managing through the regulations and making sure you're doing everything correctly. You know, we hire these on-site team members for their personality and for the fact that they're customer success oriented. And to Meg's point, and I love this quote so much that she kind of gave credit to assisted living, I think, but she said, you know, the quote is, residents don't live in our workplace. We work in their homes. And so we hire on-site team members who have that energy, who have that empathy and that emotional connection to people. And then we ask them to freaking manage ledgers like they're accountants. Like, those are two very different groups of people. Like, it's a very different personality trait. Yeah. And so, you know, to Meg's point, now they're hiring an internal team that does nothing but manage subsidized ledgers. That's it. They manage all the... Of course, that's brilliant. Everyone we know struggles with the accuracy of subsidized ledgers. Everyone we know.
Yeah.
Not just people who are coming to Fortress because they were struggling in their old software. Not just customers of Fortress. Our customers struggle too.
Yeah.
Not as much as others, but they do struggle. To other groups that we're talking to right now that are talking to us, because I spoke with a group recently who tried to roll out AI for collections and had to roll it back because their ledgers aren't accurate enough to allow AI to manage it, right?
Yeah.
Which is so interesting, because I think it's just an interesting concept that like AI could be like shining a light on operational deficiencies, which is what this person pointed out to me, and not taking credit for that, but it's really interesting to see that. But anyway, so Meg's team like creating that kind of specialization.
Yeah, it's smart. I mean, ledgers are, it's interesting. Like, I never struggled with it when I was on site, but I also worked for conventional property. It was much simpler than when you start dealing with subsidies and these separate these separate subjournals. But they're a mess everywhere.
It's just hard. It's hard.
They're messy everywhere, and they're inaccurate even on the subsidy, but on the resident side as well. Yep. And then it's how do you fix that? You know?
Yeah.
And then how are your financials correct? And then what are your residents seeing? Your residents don't even know what they owe.
Well, that's why the AI couldn't work, because the AI couldn't tell the residents what they owed because it wasn't accurate.
Oh my gosh.
I know. But anyway, I think Meg's team, like, looking at it that way, where they're looking at the role of the community manager. Like, we expect way too much of that community manager, community director. We expect way too much of them. And we need to figure out, like, what do we really want? Like, what type of person do we really want in that role? What do we want them to be doing all day? And then what do we not want them to be doing? And like, what kind of takes them out of their happy space? And like, if that's ledgering, then bring that into a specialized team. And that's what they're doing, which I really like. I think they're, really trying to figure out how to simplify. Meg used that word a few times, just like simplify every role at the company. And if that, if you come into work and you know exactly what you're supposed to focus on, you're simplifying it, not just logistically, but also emotionally. And they just know what they're coming into work on.
Yeah, I had made a note of that as well, just like this, what they're trying to do with the simplifying of the roles.
Yeah.
Especially the on-site team, so they can really focus on what's important, which is the residents.
Yeah.
And then, so you're not only creating retention for your on-site teams, but then in return, retention for your residents.
Yeah.
So smart.
Exactly. And then I'll leave on this note, but was there anything else you want to talk about Meg?
No, I think you hit on everything that I wanted to say. I had the same quote down though, where the residents don't live in our workplace. We live in their homes.
Yeah. We work in their homes. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a beautiful quote.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. It's something that we could all remind ourselves of, for sure, in this industry. Mm-hmm. It's hard. I mean, I'm not ragging on anyone for it being hard. It is hard because it is our workplace. Like, we do have to work in people's homes, and that's not easy, but it is really helpful to remind ourselves of that. And I will leave it with Meg's really beautiful story about the community manager purchasing the shoes for that 5-year-old boy who was getting off the bus every day and like struggling to walk into the office because his shoes were like 5 sizes too big, and just like made it very difficult for him to like walk and play and engage. And so the on-site team bought him a pair of shoes. And I just think that those little acts of kindness are, I think across the world, or at least specifically in the US, like those acts of kindness happen all the time, and we don't all talk about them. It certainly doesn't make the news. Like, that's not apparently what really gets our focus. It has to be negative, but those acts of kindness happen all the time. But a huge shout out to the multifamily industry, because I think it happens here a lot, because we are working in people's homes. So like we see that, we have that direct connection to people in their lives in that way, and we have an opportunity to be a positive part of that and show up for people when we can. And I just think that was just a really beautiful story.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I mean, it happens probably a lot.
Yeah.
But it should.
Yeah.
We have the ability to make an impact on people. And so when those opportunities present itself, why not?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, Meg's Dominium has a strategy around it, and they actually, tell their teams like, hey, if you see an opportunity to make an impact, let us know and we'll fund it for you. And then you get the opportunity to jump onto a company call and share it with everybody. So, love to, issue the same. Just say, like, if you get a chance today, if you listen to our episode and you get a chance today to give back, do it. Share it with us. Send us a message.
Yeah. Oh, I like that.
Yeah, we can talk about it next time.
Yeah.
See if anybody does it, or if no one listens to this podcast. Then like, there's gonna be crickets, and I'll
you
feel
and me.
silly. But what do I?
We can make an impact on each other.
Yeah. There you go. I'll send you my impact for the day.
Perfect. Love it. Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
All right. Well, until next month.
Yes, I look forward to our next one. As always, thank you, William.